Some people left. Some of us experienced death of our own staff members. And we were grieving after the pandemic. And
Okay, absolutely. So let me ask this. Have you ever seen a teacher that was ready to quit, but because you do more and
favorites. So we give our we give our teachers the opportunity to earn bonuses. And then
the frustration of unappreciated efforts, right? And so you talk about, can you help me get my CDA? Can you show me how to
environment, you really get to see who they are outside of who they are.
So when you set it up that way, and this is what I love about this conversation with you, Brandy Woods Smith, because you keep going back.
I think they should go. And so they're not performing because it's out of their natural rhythm. Like I'm a early
Sometimes we are too frustrated, too burnt, too scarred, too invested. Sometimes we do have to take. Hey, my friends, this is me, Coach Stacey B. Welcome you back to another episode of the Childcare Teacher Chronicles podcast. Woo woo! I have someone so very special here with me today. I have Miss Brandy Woods Smith. I can tell you so much about this lady right now, but I want to give her the opportunity to pop her collar and let our viewers know what makes you so magnificent.
Well, first of all, my name is Brandy Woods Smith. I am so excited to be here. I am one of the biggest fans of Miss Coach Stacey B. So thank you for inviting me. Most of you know that I'm a center owner. We own 4 centers in the Houston area. And I'm most proud about being the founder of Childcare Millionaires, where we support childcare owners all across this nation, Virgin Islands, we're going international and more. And so I'm just excited to be here because I love what you're doing for the teachers and for the owners, because we got to get on one accord.
We have to get on one accord, absolutely. And so when I thought about who would be the perfect person to sit on this couch and talk about things childcare, like I say, we like to talk about all things childcare, but specifically as it relates to the teachers, I say Brandy has to get on this couch. You have to get on this couch, not because I love you and adore you, but because you are full of so much knowledge. So those of you all who don't know, I met Brandy Woods Smith years ago during the pandemic. I was sitting in Cleveland in the kitchen cooking, and I had Facebook on, and the live came on, and this lady was just like, what are we gonna do? And we gonna save ourselves, and we not gonna let our businesses fail. And I said, oh, she talking my language.
Well, I have to have the high-pitched voice.
That's just how you talk. And so I tuned in and I was like, I got to get with this sister. She's really speaking sense. She's talking about us protecting our businesses, us protecting our staff, and us not letting the pandemic shut us down, right? And so I joined the Childcare Millionaires Association, which was a lifesaver for my business, for my mindset, for my staff. And after some time, I became a coach for Childcare Millionaires.
Yes. It's up and it's stuck.
It's up and it's stuck. And then I was like, we have to work together, right? And so as I talked about what we're going to do with teachers, how are we going to get teachers on one accord, how are we going to save this industry, I kept saying we need to pour into teachers. Yes. And so you always talk about the things we need to do besides a paycheck for teachers. But I don't know. Some people feel like I'm not doing else for teachers. I don't want to do another thing besides what's in their paycheck. So I think this would be a good topic for us to talk about. How do we pour into our teachers? How do we keep our teachers? Yes. And what do you say to those directors and owners who's like, I'm not doing nothing more than what I'm already doing?
Well, I'm going to say first thing, you need to get healed. Because if you are feeling that way, there's something in your business that happened that scarred you or hurt you, and you may be leading from a hurt place. And hurt people. And so I'm just going to say, first of all, thank yourself for getting yourself to where you are owners and directors. But sometimes we got to analyze the things that happen to us. Because if you feeling like, you know what, I ain't doing else for these people, you got to go back to what made you feel that way in the first place. And, during the pandemic, there were a lot of things that happened. Some people stayed, some people left. Some of us experienced death of our own staff members. And we were grieving after the pandemic. Absolutely. And then a lot of us, we got thrown back into a new, normalcy, but we really didn't heal. And I truly believe that some of the things that owners and teachers are going through is because we're still operating out of a place of uncertainty. We're operating out of a place of hurt. And, hurt people. It's the truth.
Well, that's a great point that you have. We just had to kind of get back to it, throw ourselves back into it. And that caused us to just keep operating, I guess, just whatever the new norm was, right? So I wanted to talk about the expectations versus the reality of leadership.
Okay.
Why do owners and directors feel obligated to pour into teachers beyond just paying them?
Well, I think a good person, whether you're an owner, director, or a Sunday school teacher, feels the need to give, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that giving, it yields us a better result. Because if we just give the bare minimum, then we can only expect the bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why we give more is kind of the concept of reaping and sowing.
Mm-hmm.
I believe if I plant seeds in my employees, if I show up for them, if I acknowledge their birthday, if I, acknowledge their goals and their dreams, they're going to show up in a different way in my business. And I know for me, when I think about how I'm going to pour into a teacher, it's not because I just want them to teach well.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they're affecting the lives of little kids.
True.
And our young children need happy teachers. If they're stressed out about how they're going to pay their bills, or if they can get to work on time, or if they have air at their house, they can't show up and be their best at my schools.
That's a good point. But it leads me to believe before we had the pandemic, before there was such a change in the workforce, people would come to work, do their job, and expect to get paid and was happy with that,
Yes.
right? And now it feels like the expectations has changed. There's a higher level of things that teachers are looking for. We have teachers that come in, they don't want to be as flexible, right? They want you to show more appreciation, more emotional support.
Yeah.
Is that really our job to pour those things into these teachers?
Well, you have to ask yourself, it may not be your job, but it's still your problem. And so I think one of the things that we have to realize is people are not selfish, like I'm just out for myself, but they're always thinking about their self first and their family first. And what the pandemic taught us, and I think this is where a change in our community came, is that life is short.
Uh-huh.
So if I'm going to work somewhere, first of all, I need to enjoy working there. There's a saying that people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if I value this person and I want them to stay in my company,
Mm-hmm.
and I want them to feel comfortable and excited about educating teachers, I can't just think about them as a worker. I have to think about them as a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because times have changed. Millennials in particular, they don't stay on jobs where they don't feel fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the generation under millennials,
Them people.
I love y'all,
Them people.
but they definitely have standards about what they want from a job, what they want from a career. And money is not the deciding factor for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's fulfillment, inclusion, that somebody cares about them, and because they feel like they can get money from anywhere.
But is it fair that teachers expect more support besides their salaries? Because that support has to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
It has to come from somebody. So is it fair to those who's in the position of the director or the ownership that they have to do all these extra things to keep the teachers fulfilled and satisfied?
So we keep using the word fair,
Mm-hmm.
right? This whole country not fair right now.
True.
And so I think if we think about what's fair, we definitely not going to yield the right result.
Mm-hmm.
If you could say, hey, you give me these hours, I'm going to give you this set amount of money, deal done, contract
Mm-hmm.
is, we've done contractually what we needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But is that going to give you the culture you want in your center?
True.
So I don't know if it's fair, but it's also not fair for me to say, hey, can you work a 10-hour day because Sarah can't come? And they stay. It's not fair for me to say, you know what, we have a lot to do for our quality rating visit. I need everybody to put in some extra time. Those things are not fair, but they're necessary. So, and when I think about, what I want to do for my staff and my teachers, I'm not always thinking about, do I have to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of things that I do, I don't have to do, but they don't have to show up the way they show up for me either.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm on a jet or when I'm on a plane here and I'm there, they're still there every single day,
Mm-hmm.
making it possible for me to have a business. And I value that. So I know some people like, I ain't doing else for them, but I'm like, what else can I do for you
Mm-hmm.
to make you stay? Because I'd rather have a teacher stay with me than leave and then I have to train somebody else
Mm-hmm.
that maybe didn't even have the same love, passion, or skill.
Okay. That's a very good point. But let me ask, when does going above and beyond becomes too much?
Don't ask Suge this question, y'all. So me and my husband have different opinions about how much we should give. And I think he's a giving person, but he's to the old philosophy. You paying them to do a job, they need to do their job.
Do your job.
Like, what's all the extra? I'm doing donuts and this, and we take our teachers on a staff retreat, and we pay for their trainings, and we take them to conferences. We know about air conditioners, help people get cars. And he's like, it don't take all of that.
Right.
And maybe it don't. But when it comes to me, I am very heart-led, and I do have to watch myself, put parameters around it, because I believe that helping somebody else can't hurt me. Now, where we hurt ourselves, owners, and get into a place of hurt, is we expect the people we're assigned to help us in the same way. And it just don't go like that. You know, I'm in a position where maybe I can help financially, but maybe they're in a position where they can give more time.
Right.
Maybe they don't have the finances to give. So I don't expect for them to give me the same way, but I do expect loyalty.
So that's a good segue into my next question, because when we give with the hope that it is making our teachers more appreciative, more loyal, more well-rounded, give them more buy-in,
more sticky, like that they not gonna leave. Right. You know, I'm doing all of this, so I need you to be here with me.
So
well, first thing you have to ask yourself, were you looking at the red flags all along? Because typically, you know, a teacher you should not keep within the first, I'm going to say, 2 weeks.
So what are some red flags?
They don't come on time. They don't have any enthusiasm. They don't spend any time researching for their classroom. They don't come in uniform. They say things like, oh, I was just helping. No, you were doing your job. So it's some of the things that they do in like their appearance, in their attitude, and in their language. Another red flag is, how do they act when kids touch them? You know, if they jumping and, you know, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, did you see the diaper? Girl, you was hired to change some ish every once in a while, right? So these are some things that are red flags for me. Okay. Like, they're looking for a job. Another thing that's a red flag for me is when a person comes to interview and say, I'm looking for care for my child, but do y'all have a job? Because I need a job where I can bring my kid. Now, I know that we have to do that, but this is also a red flag for me. Do you really want to work here, or are you working here just because you can have childcare and work? So these are all red flags to me. And normally, I know if a person is a good fit for my company within 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
I get in trouble when I try to keep them because I need to meet ratio.
Right.
And I knew something inside of me was going, go the other way.
Let them go. Let them go.
And so I think that's one of the things that we have to like be very astute of. Like, if someone is giving you red flags, you don't have to keep just pouring your all into them and then get nothing in return. Pour and see what manifests. Pour some more and see what manifests. Otherwise, they're drowning in your goodness, you know, and sometimes too much. Just like when we give our kids too much. Yeah. Sometimes we spoil them in a way and then they don't perform.
Okay, absolutely. So let me ask this. Have you ever seen a teacher that was ready to quit, but because you do more and pour into them beyond the paycheck, that kind of got them to change their mind and stick around?
Absolutely. I've had teachers that like needed to quit because of like a life experience or something going on, but because we took time and say, hey, how can we make a plan for you? Let's stop. I know we have a plan for your position, but how can we recalibrate what's going on in your life? For one teacher recently, we needed to just give her 2 weeks off so she could handle something very important. And she came back better and more energized, but she had been with me for 3 years. Should I expect a person to work for me for 3 years and never have a hiccup in their life? I have hiccups in my life all the time. I'm just blessed that I don't even have to go to work every single day like the teachers. So if I need a mental day, I can take it. But we expect for them to be at work Monday through Friday, month after month, you know, having very little downtime, very little time to take care of their family. When sometimes if we could just give a person a moment to recalibrate, they can come back better. But sometimes we're not in the position to do that when it comes to staffing. But sometimes it's necessary. So we gave her the 2 weeks off. She came back better. She's been with me for 3 years. I can't replace her. Not that easy. It would take me like 2 people to replace what she does in our company.
So then that leads me to my next question. In doing more and above and beyond just a paycheck, what would you say has been the biggest return on your investment?
I think my staff retreat. I'm gonna definitely say my staff retreat. So we've been in business close to 15 years, and about 3 years in, we started taking our staff on a trip. And it was a dual purpose. One, we needed to build community because we were expanding into multiple centers, and that means I was at each location less. And two, we wanted to have a system to get all of their annual training hours in at one time. So we were compliant. But what we found during the staff retreat is we were able to impart vision and knowledge and some sense of camaraderie all at one time. So it was like what you would have to do over a year, we were compacting it into 3 days. And yes, it cost money to take them out of town, and we would go out to eat and, go bowling, go to the club where we was all fam, just let your hair down with your staff. And then kind of get back to, but this is what we need to do to keep our business growing. And I tell them, when I win, you win.
Right.
When we make more, you get raises.
Right.
When we have the right number of kids, we all benefit.
Right.
When we're in the newspaper, like we were in the newspaper a week ago, everybody was excited. And so this was a time for us to build community. So that's where I've definitely got the biggest bang for my buck.
And like you say, when you shine, they shine. So when you work
Absolutely.
together as a team, everybody benefits. And speaking of retreats, one of the things that I found with retreats, because we also, started with staff
Yes.
retreats, that it takes a village. One of the things I found that it gave our teachers more of a buy-in. It made them feel more valued, more included. They didn't feel like they just needed to come into those four walls, punch a clock, watch children, and go home. And so that was actually why I started the Childcare Teacher Reset Retreat.
Yes.
Something on a bigger scale where it gave more teachers the opportunity to come to an event, retreat, train, relax, get to meet other teachers, get to know each other. You're struggling at your centers, but you're not the only one struggling. When we get a room full of different childcare teachers from different organizations, and one thing we do is we group them together. All my infant teachers over here, all my toddlers, let's talk about the problems we have. Let's help each other problem solve. And so I wanted to mention that because retreats are definitely a huge buy-in in keeping your teachers positive, keeping them loyal, keeping them feel like they are included in the organization.
And sometimes they realize how good of a supervisor, boss, owner that they have when they go in here. We don't have no supplies. We don't have no training. We pay for our own CPR. And you like, my owner does this for us. My owner does that for us. And so sometimes putting them in an environment with other teachers is excellent. I want to say I'm so proud of the retreat because some owners can't do it on their own, but you have a community where every owner can bring their staff.
Yeah.
So you're doing an amazing work.
Thank you. And what I find is so funny that like teachers get real territorial. Like they show up and they are ready to brag on their centers, brag on what we do and
They
how
got
we
the
have
t-shirt, the jacket.
Yes. And so again, it's a huge plus for the centers. It's a huge plus for the organizations. And again, it makes them feel included. So let me ask you though, when we're talking about I ain't doing else for these teachers, how far is too far when we talk about pouring into the teachers outside the regular paycheck?
I think you definitely need a boundary and a monetary ceiling, unless the Lord himself tap you on your shoulder and tell you to do something else. And I also think it needs to be structured so it doesn't seem like you're playing favorites. So we give our teachers the opportunity to earn bonuses. And then sometimes we bless all the teachers in a different way. For example, at our last Christmas party, I didn't do big bonuses. And this was the first year in a long time. And my mom, who is one of my directors, she's 70 years old. She's retiring in a few weeks, but she was with me when I opened my center. She's still with me today. She told all the staff that this was my Christmas. And so their goal was, she told them that this year we're going to bless Miss Woods. Okay. Now, this felt real different for me because they threw me a big birthday party. For Christmas, they bought me gifts, and I'm normally the one who's giving. Right. But this showed me, now they're learning reciprocity. So because I didn't think I was going to give any gifts, what I did is I looked at like their real need. One of our teachers, her air conditioning unit had went out. So we bought her like some air conditioning units for her home. One of our teachers, she was just getting out on her own. We bought her a new TV for her apartment. So we really went more thoughtful. But we had to put like a monetary limit, because we don't want one staff member to be like, oh, she's always doing something for this one, but she never does something for me.
That was gonna be my next question. And it's actually like a two-part question.
Okay.
One, when do pouring into your teachers and doing above and beyond become enabling them? But then also, how do you make this fair across the board? And this is one of the biggest things that come up when we talk about, the outside or the added benefits of
Yes.
childcare assistants, right? When you have a teacher who have children.
Ooh, it's just to get hot.
Ooh, it's about to get hot. A lot of people who come into the early learning sector with children, they expect free childcare, right? And there are some centers who give them free childcare or 50% off or 75% off. My thought process on that is, how is that fair to the person who's working here without a child, right? Because if you add up what you giving them in free childcare, you might as well add that to their paycheck, because that's more money walking out of your center, right? So when does enabling become a problem? But also, how do you make sure you're being fair in what you're doing?
So one of the things I will say when it comes to enabling, I'm going to liken this to your children. If a person feels like you're going to always do extra, then they can always come and ask you for an advance, or they can always bring you a sob story.
Advance.
Yes. They will maybe not manage their own situation. And so one of the things that we talk about, because we actually have like an employee need fund, where if a person's having a situation or they have a certain illness, they can actually fill out an application, and if they need something, and then we can decide if we're going to accept it or not accept it.
Okay.
And so we tried to put a little parameters around it. But we also, in our statement of benefits, we include all of those soft things that we do for staff that's not like on their paycheck. Like your staff retreat is worth $3,000. Us making sure we pay for all of your hours in your CPR is worth $500 a year. If you do have childcare assistance and we're giving you any discount, it's shown in your total compensation.
Right.
That way we can look and say, you know what, this person is doing this job and their total compensation this year was $30,000, but this person was $38,000. There may be something that we need to do. So we don't give steep discounts for childcare anymore. We used to, but we require, if we do give a discount, it's normally in the first 90 days while you're applying for your voucher. Because most of our workers, they can get approved. Now, if you don't want to give them people your information, so you don't want to get approved because you don't want to do the application, your situation can't be my problem.
Right.
It can't be my financial burden.
Right.
So we're willing to help for a certain amount of time, and then after that, we go to a routine, very small discount.
So one of the things that you mentioned was you bought an air condition. I feel like I heard you say, you could correct me if I'm wrong, you purchased a car.
You did too.
Dang, why you
See,
my business?
So she bought a car for one of her staff members too.
I did. But this is what I like with what you said that I want to pinpoint. She got me. But what I want to pinpoint, and I think this is where the frustration coming with a lot of owners, for those who say, I'm not doing else, is because they don't know how to assign a monetary value to all the extra things they're doing, right? And so when you assign that monetary value, and then you can actually show the staff, yes, this is your salary, but this is what you get in training. This is what you get in retreats. This is what you get in conferences. This is what you get in bonuses. Then that allows the staff to actually have an understanding and maybe a more appreciation. Because if you're just doing it and don't assign a dollar value to it, then you can't really fault them for not knowing how much they're pouring into you, right?
Yeah, and document it. I know it's a gift, but have some documentation around it. Like, hey, we are doing this, but we want to acknowledge that we're doing it. This is it's a benevolent gift, but we still need you to sign for it. And then you also need to talk to your CPA to make sure that all of those things that you're doing for your staff, that you're writing it off appropriately.
Yeah.
And so there are some ways where doing things for your staff can, benefit you a little bit when it comes to paying less taxes. It doesn't make you make more money. But I'm also always asking myself, for the person we helped with the car, she was my opener. She was there every morning at 5:30. Am I going to help her get a car, or am I going to get up at 5:30?
Right.
And so for me, it was like, you know what? If we can help her in this way, and then she can do this extra without us having to feel like we need to change her pay rate, that's what we did. And we told her at the time when we purchased the car, this will lock your actually hourly rate for a specified amount of time. So it's nothing wrong with putting parameters around what you do, but it needs to be a conversation. Otherwise, people won't respect it. And they may feel like it's not even a sacrifice for you.
Right.
You know, teachers, I want y'all to know, a lot of your owners go without paying themselves and doing things for themselves and their families lots of times so they can do it for the center. Absolutely. So those things that they do is a sacrifice. So I don't want you to take it as, oh, they got it. You know, she holding the bag, so she good. That's not always what it is. Sometimes it's a true sacrifice that we, you know, us and our spouses have decided to do because we do value you. We do want to see you succeed. But, you know, it should come with some appreciation.
Some appreciation. And so for the centers that doesn't go above and beyond, those, I call it maybe the tough love approach, right? Do you think they struggle more with retention than those who, you know, willingly or freely give more?
You know, I don't know the numbers around it, but I'm going to assume yes. Because I think about like Ashley Smallwood, who's like had the same staff forever. Like, and she is always pouring into her staff and looking at different ways that she can do that. And I see her. And I see some people who bring people in, barely train them, and they like a revolving door. And they don't even get a chance to build relationship. So I feel like the owners that do that above and beyond, it's about building relationship. You know, and it's not just about the things. You got to give me also the tools to do my job. Because if I'm not successful in my job, it don't matter what you give me, I'm not going to stay. Because nobody wants to feel like they're coming in and they're not successful, they're not doing the right thing. People do have some kind of self-worth and self-esteem that they want to maintain. So another reason why I see people leave is because nobody invested in their skill. It's not just investing in you financially. It's how can you make sure I'm a better person? Can you help me get my CDA? Can you help me learn how to manage my classroom? So it's not just about giving you these extra things that's not related to your job, but also, am I going over and beyond to give you what you need to do your job correctly?
Oh, you so on point, because my next question I had for you was the frustration of unappreciated efforts, right? And so you talk about, can you help me get my CDA? Can you show me how to do better in the classroom? And then you have all these directors and owners who do so, and then they go down the street for 25 cents more, right? So how do you make sure, and again, like you say, we can use the word fair, unfair. Reality is it affects the owners and it affects the directors. That's why this is such a hot topic. How much to pour in, when pouring in is too much, is it appreciated, and does it yield the results you want, right? So what's one thing you say you've done for teachers that you thought would be appreciated and they just really didn't appreciate it?
I think when we first started paying for all their trainings, because as a public school teacher, I was responsible for making sure I kept my certification up. And so I'm like, just like a nurse is required to have these credentials before they come, why do you think you could come with no credentials and work? I'm supposed to pay for it, but they're your credentials. And so we had to start actually, you know, I believe in a good contract. So we had to start saying, hey, if we pay for these things, this is how long we expect for you to stay. And if not, because you can take these credentials with you, this is how we will get paid back if you don't stay this certain amount of time. And it's tight, but it's right, because if I'm going to pay thousands of dollars for you to get a credential, and it's to benefit you in the role in this job, but you can take it with you, I have to say I'm going to expect for you to work here this amount of time. But if you don't, I'm okay with that. Right. But after this amount of time, you owe me 50%. This amount of time, you owe me 25%. And after this amount of time, you owe me nothing.
And so I love what you're saying because it puts it back on the owners and the directors, right? And like I said, I think a lot of their frustration doesn't really come from the teachers and what they do. Like when I talk about the retreat, there's a lot of owners who would love to pay for their teachers to come to this childcare teacher reset retreat, right? But they feel like they don't appreciate it and they might leave anyway. And so I said, you need a training and retreat budget.
And I'm going to say, but what if they stay?
What if they stay?
And so a lot of times we're scared to invest. Like, what if I lose this? So a lot of times we're worried about if they're going to leave, right? And I know you say, you have to have a budget, but what if they stay? It's just like if you were in a marriage and you think about going to counseling. That is an investment in your marriage. Absolutely. Them coming to the retreat is an investment in your business. And maybe you're going to save money because they figured out that they were not a good fit for your organization. And sometimes we pay people for years that we should have let go. And so we wasted $60,000, $30,000, $90,000 on a person that was never on our team. They were only on our payroll. Right. So sometimes when I do invest, it lets me know, okay, let's cut that off. Because I believe if there's a virus in my center, kill it dead. Kill it dead. If there is a person with a bad attitude, a person that's going to bring everybody down, kill it dead. So if I give you the opportunity to say, oh my God, we're going to the teacher retreat. We're going to be heading over to Coach Stacey B's retreat. And you're like, I don't want to do all of that. Red flag. I don't know if I can, red flag. And so sometimes when you put people in an environment, you really get to see who they are outside of who they are at work. Because you have to know at work, they're bringing a representative. Yep. But when you get them outside of that environment, you're going to see the real.
Really showing up.
The real.
Well, and that was why I had the conversation about budgeting for things like this, because owners and directors get so attached to the person and not the overall goal. The goal is the team build. The goal is to pour into the team, whoever the team is at the time. So stop assigning these values to individual people, but to the overall team, right? And that detached some of that personal feelings from it, right? Oh, this girl, I paid for her to do. How many times you hear that? I paid for her to do this and she just left. Right. That's because you poured into the person and not the overall goal of the team, right? I love that. And so when you set it up that way, and this is what I love about this conversation with you, Brandy Woods Smith, because you keep going back to written and documentation. And I think that's where a lot of owners fail and have these war wounds and scars from pouring into the teachers and doing too much because they're not handling their business on the back end. Yes. The way it should be.
Yeah, I mean, even in your handbook, when you talk about how you're going to develop your staff, even when you're setting goals for them, all of that, has a budget to it. And we get in our feelings, especially when we hire unqualified people and we try to pour into them. You knew your cousin wasn't going to come to work. You saw her like, oh, well, she ain't working right now. TT, I'm going to give her a job. You knew she wasn't going to come to work then. And so when you pour into a situation like that, and I got great family members that work for me, by the way, but when you pour into situations like that, you already knew that ground wasn't fertile. I'm talking about you strategically hiring. So when you're pouring into something, you're pouring to yield a return. Right. And that goes with, first of all, looking at who you have on your team. And some of us have to really analyze, like, should this person still be on our team? And then we got to go further and say, if they should still be on our team, have I been doing what I need to do to make sure that they're functioning to their optimal ability and not being cheap?
But also knowing who you have. I never forget Miss Monica Howard. When we had one of our masterminds in New York, and she talked about her staff was so unappreciative. They had some type of meetup on a Saturday, and she had this big breakfast catered, all this wonderful breakfast food, and half the staff was like, "Oh, we like Whataburger." She was like, "Whataburger?" She spent all this money on catering this big elaborate breakfast for their training to make them feel special and pouring into them. And they didn't even appreciate that they wanted Whataburger. And her feelings were hurt. I remember that. She said, I'm not doing else for them, right? But that means we have to know who we have and what we need to give.
And what they value.
And what they value. I never forget one time a family member of mine was getting a divorce, and he was like, I give this girl everything. I do everything for her. I cook, I clean, I take care of the kids. And I knew the female very well. I say, but that's not what she needs. She needed financial stability, right? So you did everything you thought she needed. But that wasn't what she needed. She needed financial security. She can cook and clean herself. So again, I bring that up because even as we maneuver through our centers, we need to know the type of people we have and what they value, what they appreciate, what we think. And sometimes some of us has elevated and my husband laughing at
we
me all
want
the time.
quiche, but they want water.
Yes. My husband said, you're not staying at the Bad News Bears hotels no more. No, I'm not. I will not. Although we have elevated and our tastes have changed in some things, sometimes your staff, they are not there yet. So we need to know what is attractive to them, what makes them happy and comfortable.
And that comes through communicating.
Two-way
communication.
Absolutely.
A lot of times we're giving our staff vision. We're giving our staff what we want. But sometimes you got to stop and say, what do you want? What class do you really want to work with? And actually listen. Every year we let our teachers bid for the classroom that they want.
Okay.
And we kind of do it by seniority. We let them know, do you want to open? Do you want to close? And we ask them, what age groups do you not want to work with? A lot of times we're putting people where we think they should go. And so they're not performing because it's out of their natural rhythm. Like, I'm an early bird. You're never going to get the best of me at midnight. You're not, because she's sleeping.
Not even at 8 o'clock.
You don't have to tell my business.
Not even at 8 o'clock.
Because I will go to sleep
you
on
will
you.
Stand on the wall sleep.
So listen, you got to know that I'm an early bird.
Yes.
But in talking about what our staff needs, that's about having communication one-on-one, and explaining when we're investing in them. This is what we think it will do for us.
Right.
Do you think this is what you need right now? Because we want to put the investment where we think you're going to get the most growth. So last year when we were going through quality rating, our teachers was like, we need somebody to come and coach us.
Right.
And I was like, what? I got offended because I'm like, I am the coach. I'm the Brandy Woods. I coach all over the world. But I'm too close to them.
You are.
So we hired Lydia, who is a curriculum director in the public school system. And she was able to just talk to them where they didn't feel threatened.
Right.
She was able to look at their classrooms and give them a plan. And each of them, you could feel like their frustration lift, but also you can see hope, right? I feel like they should want it from me, directly from me. I'm the cow. I got the milk.
No.
They didn't want it from me.
What you said is also important, and I hope that some owners, some directors out there listening to this, sometimes we are too close.
Yes.
Sometimes we are too frustrated, too burnt, too scarred, too invested. Sometimes we do have to take a step back and let someone else who has a clean slate steer the ship at times. That's very important what you added. But I wanted to ask, so what do you think separate the great centers from the rest?
You want to get me in trouble?
No, I want you to be honest.
I mean, it's really the owner.
Okay.
Ooh,
you're getting sticky.
And this is bad. This is good and bad.
This is good.
I work with a lot of owners.
Yeah.
Over Child Communities, we've worked with a little over 40,000 owners. We've surveyed, we've done trainings, summits, challenges. And a lot of the centers I really see struggle, they have not taken time to really think out their program, policies, and procedures, and they're doing everything on the fly. And the way that this really affects your staff is you don't even remember what you said because you're always changing things.
On the fly.
And now they don't trust you because you said one thing one day and then you changed it the next day. You said one thing to Sarah and another thing to John because you didn't have it written. If it's not written, it's not real. I find that successful owners have policies and procedures. Successful owners correct and coach their staff based on those policies and procedures and not opinions. So when I don't have everything written, I don't have everything verified where everybody can see it, it looks like I'm two-faced it. It looks like I'm picking on you. It looks like I got favoritism. But when I'm working on my policy, the only thing you can say is Ms. Woods stick by the policy. Ms. Woods has a 90% attendance rate. when you work here, you got to wear a uniform. And I'm not letting this person not do it and this person not do it. Your lesson plans are due on Thursday. I'm not picking on you. When I did your orientation, you knew these things. But owners that don't have that framework, and they're kind of like working on the fly, they're working emotional, they're trying to do too many things, and they're not really steering the ship, those are the centers where I see high turnover, low profits, and really low morale.
And then also those type of owners, they don't even know their own policies sometimes. Like you say, they're busy working on the fly. And so how can you get your team to buy in and really know the rules and the regulations and the policies if you don't take a minute, sit down, map things out, and then work forward in a positive way in your organization?
And you said it only takes a minute.
Yeah.
You don't have to stop forever. But just stop just for a minute and go back over your policies and procedures and reintroduce them to your staff. Have a reintroduction meeting. You don't have to shut down your business or stop hiring. I'm not going to do this no more. Just take a minute and recalibrate and take accountability of your part so then your staff can take accountability of their part.
But then also being very honest. What I found in coaching in this early child care world is a lot of people don't want to have the honest conversation. You know, they look good, they show up cute and together, and then you peel back them layers and they stuff a mess, right? And so what it real sticky. But what they don't understand is there is so much support out here. There's more people rooting for you, for this industry as a whole. I want to see this industry thrive and succeed as much as it can, as opposed to it going away, right? And so there's so many people out here who's willing to support you, owners and directors, who need to recalibrate, who need to regroup, who need to get these policies and procedures in place. But you have to be willing to have that honest conversation. We can never help you pour into your teachers and get better teachers and get a reliable staff if your stuff not together at the top of the chain. I say it all the time. If you a mess at the top, you're going to be a mess at the bottom, because everything falls down, right? Gravity going to pull it straight down. So as we continue this conversation, I'm going to wrap up real soon because I know you got to hit the road. You're a very busy lady. Yeah, you cute. But let me ask you this. So in the time that you have poured into your staff and doing more, have you found a great way to balance this extra and keep you from going through burnout?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to say that the way I keep from going through burnout is I let people do their job. I let my directors be directors. I let my assistant directors be assistant directors. My office managers be office managers. My teachers be teachers.
So you don't hover?
I don't think I hover. Now, I have very strong expectations. I don't want nobody on my staff to look and say, she's lying. I have strong expectations, but I don't feel like I need to do their job. And what makes me, I feel, also not get burnt out in my giving is because I'm doing it from a pure place. I'm doing it from a place where if I don't get anything back, I'm going to be okay. My expectation is my blessings come from God. So if he tells me to do something, then he is required to make sure that I'm taken care of. I believe that some plants, some water, but God gives the increase. So if I'm doing what he tells me to do and it don't go the way I thought, I got to believe it's all working together for my good. Because I'm doing it according to what he told me to do. Now, there are times when I do what I want to do, and I just got to eat that mistake.
Right.
You know, I got to eat that mistake. God didn't tell me to do that. I was in my ego because I could or I couldn't. I got to eat that mistake. But when I feel like I'm doing things the way he wants me to do it, I depend on him for the result. I'm responsible for the input. He's responsible for the output.
So have you ever felt like you've drained yourself doing too much for your staff?
Absolutely.
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 So then let me ask you this, because I can remember at one time I used to do all kind of things for my staff. This was years ago, right? And it was my executive team who had to tell me stop. They was like, no, don't you do another thing for these teachers because they don't appreciate it.
My kids say it all the time. But you didn't ask me the right question. Did I regret it?
Did you regret it?
No. And the reason why I didn't regret it is because I felt like I was being true to myself.
True.
And even if they came and they went and they never come again, at least they saw light in the world through our center. Because I feel our centers are a ministry as well. I feel like it's a healing place for kids and families. I feel like it's a safe refuge. So I maybe didn't get it back from that person, but I feel like we were doing the mission of the whole business. and that is to support our community.
So who helps you regulate that though? If you say you yourself have poured in too much and have given too much, how if you had to speak to the owners right now who are looking for ways to get their teachers that buy-in, get their teachers to feel included, who helps you regulate what's too much?
Yeah, I think my regulation came in having that budget for it.
Uh-huh.
And after we reach this budget, we ain't got no more. Also having a system for when teachers need extra help outside of what we provide, that we can document it, we can understand the situation. And I have like my directors, my sister, they can kind of do it. And then also leaning on my family, because when you go home and you leave your center and you leave your staff, you go home to your family, and your family sees things a different way from you. So I've learned to listen to my children. I've learned to listen to my husband, listen to my mom, because I know that they have my best interest in heart. And so even when, it's time, my mom will be like, okay, knock off. Enough is enough. We done what we can in this situation. That's it. And I have to respect her wisdom.
Absolutely. And it's very important to have those outside people around you so they can see. It's like any other relationship. When you in it too deep, sometimes you don't see. Baby, when that bottom line come down, you be like, oh,
Okay.
I got to stop this. So share with the people, what are some of the things you do extra outside of their regular pay scales that you pour into your teachers with?
So we do longevity bonuses. This is one of the things that I love to do because I don't really like hiring new people. I got trust issues, y'all. So I rather have high performance staff that's been with me a long time. So we give longevity bonus. Every year you with me, you get a bonus. We also increase their paid time off each and every year that they're with us. And these are things that, help us retain teachers, but also help us save money by not hiring people, having this revolving door, parents not trusting. Now, who my teacher this week? Right. We really don't have that issue. I still have my first full-time employee. I still have the first employee I opened my second center with. I still have my first 3 employees I opened my third center with. And my fourth center just got here, so they still here. But we've been able to keep people, literally some people for 15 years. And I think the other thing that I do outside of that is I like to celebrate people's personal milestones, their birthdays, their anniversary, when they go to college. I want them to feel like that these are points where I'm celebrating their growth with them, because a lot of times that people feel like they can't grow and be celebrated, they'll leave. You got some friends you left because they didn't celebrate you. Right. I don't want my staff to feel like I'm not celebrating their next.
Right. And what you said was so important, though. When you celebrate them, it makes them feel included. It makes them feel like I'm a part of this team. So that's an absolutely great point to put out to directors, and to make sure that you are finding those small things matter that we really don't think that people pay attention to. Show them that you are paying attention to that. But also, you said that it helps you keep them with longevity, right? Your parents want to know, do we still have the same teacher? Why is the teachers always changing? When you pour into the staff, it keeps them there longer, and it keeps your enrollment up. It keeps your parents trusting you. It keeps your business more stable, right?
More healthy.
Yes, more healthy. So as I wrap this up, I have one question.
Oh, Lord.
It's an easy question. If you had to start over, would you still invest as much as you did in your staff?
I absolutely would invest as much in my staff. And sometimes it's simple things. It could be like you buy your first car and I give you a car wash pass for the year. Something real simple. Or it could also be I give you a tuition reimbursement and now you have your degree. The reason why I will continue to invest in my staff is because people continue to invest in me. And I believe that when we invest, we give people a chance for a brighter future.
So almost like a pay it forward.
Pay it forward, baby.
Pay it forward. Well, this is going to wrap up our episode of the Childcare Teacher.
I don't want to leave.
I want you to stay. Let's talk about something else. Where have you been?
I know.
But no, I really am so appreciative that you found time to come sit on the couch with us and share your knowledge. Brandy Woods Smith, you are so full of information. And I tell people all the time, Brandy is the real deal. She's not going to give you a little bit and then make you come pay for something, then give you a little. Brandy will sit on webinars and lives for 3, 4, 5 hours
Yeah.
telling you what you need to make sure that you have a functioning child care center. We are so appreciative to what you do for this industry,
Thank
to what you do for this community. Your heart is very pure. You are very kind-hearted. You are very open and honest, and we so appreciate all you do, Brandy Woods.
I appreciate that. And I can't leave without telling you thank you. But mostly, I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank
I've seen you press in a way that most people wouldn't have. You haven't given up. And I know you really have a heart for our teachers. And so, owners, make sure you get those teachers to their retreat. Make sure you let them know how to subscribe to the podcast, because a lot of people are pouring into the owners, but very few people are taking the time to pour into the teachers. You're doing great work.
Thank you. It is very important for us to make sure that teachers have a safe space to go to. That's why we have the Childcare Teacher Chronicles podcast. Thank you for bringing up the Childcare Teacher Reset Retreat. We will be having July 25th through 27th in the IP in Biloxi, Mississippi. We are looking forward to a great time. And as Brandy said, like, follow, and subscribe this podcast. We are going to wrap this up, but I am so appreciative to you being here, Brandy Woods Smith, and we look to talk to you again on the podcast.
Yay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.